Okay, so COVID run. This is I call it that because I used to do a web series called Coffee Run, where we would pile up in a car and head off to Tim Hortons and grab an extra large double double, and that's not happening. So we're doing the COVID run. So this is Mr. Penn Jillette, a bit of a magician, bit of an I don't know. Is that the right thing? Is that the right to say? We
Sure.
say that.
We're happy. We're happy with it.
Okay. I used to get really not offended. I wouldn't go that far, but I'd say off put with DJ.
Yeah.
You're a DJ. But now I think in my later years of doing this for I think 20 years, it's just like I'm like, yeah.
It does happen, when we were first on Broadway, well, actually before Broadway, off Broadway, and even touring around, if people said the M word around us, we would just, you couldn't say magic or magician or anything because we were way, way different from that. We were doing all these crazy mind games and yeah, we used some of the principles of magic, but no, we didn't do that. And uh, then it just fell away. I think you get successful enough or old enough where it doesn't matter. I remember there was a interview I read, I don't know when it was, probably in the 80s, where Bob Dylan just said he was a folk singer. After, you know, 30 years of I'm not a folk singer, don't call me a folk singer, I'm not a folk rocker, there's no such thing as folk rock, I don't do protest songs. What do you do, Bob? I'm a folk singer.
Just that's it. I sing for
So
folks.
I'm a magician. You're a DJ. We're
There you
talking.
go.
Who cares? Yeah.
Perfect. Actually, funny about Bob Dylan. When I was running around the world gallivanting and purveying music, I used to get phone calls to my hotel room from older women saying, "Are you Bob Dylan?" I'm not making this up, and I would be, "I have no idea what you're talking about, lady. I'm not Bob Dylan." As you might have been able to tell from the sound of my voice. So have a great day. Click. And this has actually happened more than once, and it got really weird. And I later found out that Bob Dylan and I share the same name.
Ah.
Right. He's not Bob nor Dylan.
No, he's
He's
not.
Joel Zimmerman.
No, Robert Zimmerman.
Robert Zimmerman. My bad. Robert Zimmerman. So we shared the same name, and people would think I was his burner pseudonym for checking into such and such hotel, and I always thought that was the strangest thing.
And also, Bob, went electric, went through a lot of changes. There's no reason to think he wouldn't put on a mouse head and start doing dance music.
Totally plausible. Yeah.
And that would be, as a matter of fact, The Onion did a parody about all the controversy over Bob Dylan going EDM.
Really?
Yeah.
I love I never saw that, and I thought I was
Yeah.
I
It was
love
Bob
the
Dylan, and it had him sitting at a desk with I don't think it was a deadmau5 head, but it was something like that. And Bob
Right.
Dylan has gone electronica, and people are very upset about it.
That's funny. I didn't know you were an Onion fan. Every time I talk about the Onion to friends or people, it's like they're like, the what? And then as you look into it, and even sometimes I remember used to be getting shared Onion, like the videos they used to do at the newsroom, because they were really well produced, amazing, and so many people would think it's real.
That is what happened in the United States the past 5 years, is people started thinking it was real.
Right.
So, yeah. All that stuff. QAnon
good.
is really just an Onion thing. It's just people saying, "Wouldn't it be fun if we believed this shit?" And they believe this shit, and pretty soon they're shooting each other.
I wonder if it was like the Onion. Really?
Well, it certainly. I don't think it was literally the Onion, but it certainly was emotionally the Onion.
Mm-hmm. That's nuts. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest. Like, there's been nothing but like things not to talk about this year. It's just like I should probably write these down. But I have like a top 5, because I've been scattered around doing interviews, podcasts, this and that for this guy. Because what else are we doing, really?
Sure.
Number one, so what are you doing during the pandemic?
Well, I've tried to do. First of all, I have two teenage children, 14 to 15. So keeping them alive while they live with their mother, father, and grandmother, and each other, and nobody else in seclusion, trying to live through a computer, uh, dealing with their daily suffering is a full time job. And then I decided that, there were two things I wanted to do in my life that I hadn't done. And one was to play a musical instrument. So 20 years ago, I took up upright bebop jazz bass and practiced that. And I never knew a language other than my native tongue. And start of COVID, or a little bit into it, I started learning Spanish, 90 minutes a day with tutors and stuff, to try to maybe another 100, 200 hours be a little bit conversant in another language because I want to think about myself in another way.
Hmm.
And I'm stuck thinking in this one language, and I want to get out of that. I also want to see who I am in another language. And I finally finished a novel, and I'm also my second novel, and I'm also working with Teller because we did two episodes of 2 seasons of Fool Us in lockdown, and that was crazy to write magic for people who weren't there. As a matter of fact, for the next season, I will probably, and I'm not putting you on the spot now in any way, but I will probably ask if you'd like. If you'd allow us to do a magic trick for you for that show.
Sure. As soon as I'd be more
Well,
than happy, but
so
yeah.
much you're well, you I did not put you on the spot, but then you said yes, but you didn't have to.
Yeah.
I was going to ask it another time.
No. Fun, fun, sunshine, not Canada. Don't threaten me with a good time.
So where are you in Canada?
I'm actually in southern Ontario, somewhere
Oh,
between Hamilton and Toronto. I'm like
that's
out in the
nice.
woods. I grew up in Niagara Falls, and then immigrated an hour north to Toronto because just kind of the big smoke, the big hustle and bustle of where you're going to get the job and that kind of thing. And long story short, I put on a mouse head and then decided to put on my big boy pants and buy a house because, you're just throwing money away at rent and things like that. And you gotta have something that's yours, whether it's an asset, a home, a property, whatever. So I just did that and then just got it over with about 5-6 years ago because I was doing a lot of touring. And I never really got to the point where it was like, I'm going to buy a home because why? I'm never in it, you know? Sad story. Actually, part of my touring, even recently, so there was a nightclub I was hired to go and do some consulting for in terms of their technology and stuff like that. And I think we'll kind of segue off this into this other thing I want to talk to you about. But I was at the Palms for a while they built up this mega financial disaster known as chaos, aptly named. And the thing is with DJs and these contracts is a lot of them have things in it, and I was wondering, maybe it's different for you, but for me, I played the Wynn property for a while. I did the XS nightclub thing, and then I did the other MGM property for a bit over the span of 10 years. And there's always something in the contract that says you can't leave the compound. Like, so I couldn't go to another nightclub at another thing just because they didn't want photos of me at the thing. And I could see your marquee from my hotel room. And I'm like, I've always wanted to go and see your show live because I'm a fan. Since, I think my intro to Penn and Teller was bullshit. And it was great. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing!" And of course, I'd follow every time you guys. I didn't change the channel when that kind of stuff came on. And so I'm standing in my room. The Rio is across the street. I couldn't go. Like, and because I was stuck at the that station casino for weeks, and it's just I'm talking to I'm like, can I go? And they're like, no, because you need to get a photo because you know what's going to go down. Someone's going to see you and take a picture, and you're going to throw away they don't have to pay you because you broke your thing. Like, holy shit, really? Yeah, really. I'm like,
we
oh,
went
okay.
to we went to the Win. We had this weird every once in a while, as you know, in show business, very crazy gigs come up, and some corporate group wanted to hire Penn and Teller to perform at a club. So the idea was they would have their champagne and their places and there'd be music, but in between, for this corporation, we would come onto this entirely inadequate stage, badly lit, grotesquely overpaid, and do 20 minutes of no one paying attention to us, of
Nice.
material that we would be doing on the streets 30 years before for free, for this huge amount of money. Exactly. And I remember being in that club with Teller and a manager and a couple crew guys going, how are we going to do this clusterfuck? And there over on a couch was the dead mouse head on the couch.
I had nothing to do with this. Just disclaimer.
Okay, and we said, is he playing this club? What?
I
And they said, I think he's in at night or something.
know what
And
you're
we went,
talking about.
and we said, and he just leaves the head. I mean, because I'm good friends with the residents, or I was good friends with the residents, and they had their eyeball heads, and one of them was stolen. And I said, wouldn't someone steal the dead mouse head? And then Teller said, wouldn't we steal the dead mouse head?
Oh
And I said,
my.
I I don't think we would, but it sure would be funny if you went out on stage tonight with the actual dead mouse head on.
We'll edit
I
that
said,
bit out, by the way. The teller said. Yeah, yeah. Teller said, and I'll just go beep.
we said it sure would be funny, that it would be in the local paper, Teller is now dead mouse. Maybe Teller was dead mouse all along, but it was just sitting there, and we said, well, we won't we won't touch it or anything. But it's funny they just left it out on the couch, and we figured the head you wear must be pretty nice. It must have like air conditioning and
No, no.
just paper mache
It,
bullshit.
it it smells like feet and wet cardboard. Like it's well, no, it's not. It's not paper mache bullshit. I wish it was. Just like I wish they were disposable so that we could really leave them. I remember I know what you're talking about, and I actually remember that. But I digress. The actual head, the hero head, is built by the Jim Henson Company out in
Oh,
Burbank.
sure. Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's because
So it fits on your
oh yeah,
shoulders
yeah.
real nice, real nice.
Well, and there's a real science to that because I remember like in the early days when we would just find a prop maker or something to build one, they may or may not have considered how 3 pounds turns into 40 pounds in 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
it's all a matter of how it's balanced, because you see these, like Kenyan women with these 400 gallon jugs of water on their head, walking and stuff like that, because they got that weight, and distributed properly down their spine and stuff like that. And of course, Hensons they're the undisputed gods of, high fashion and functionality, I guess. And they told me, it's just like literally 2 degrees, this way or that way, and that's the difference between being able to wear this for 30 minutes or 30 days. And it was really cool. So now we've got that system down, but it's like it's really at the end of the day, it's just kind of like a modified version of a hard hat on the inside. So it's not something we could just throw it in the wash. So it sits in a rogue case and just I'm done. Yay! Disassemble. Put
Now,
in rogue case.
how much stuff do you have to bring with you to do a gig?
Personally
I don't
or
mean
logistically?
underwear. I mean show.
Well, that's what I mean. Like I would bring some things, like a laptop, a couple of things, that go to the stage and stuff like that. But the back line, we have two shows. Like, you've got your A show and your B show. The A
And
show
they
being the whole
and they leave.
production, and that could be 2 or 3 trucks.
So you're responsible for all the lights and sound and
Yeah, we own a production company, so it turned into that thing like, wait, VER, this costs what to rent for 2 days, and then it kind of makes sense because it's still half the price of what the retail price would be of the thing, But if you do enough shows, it's like, why don't we just
sure.
buy it and then start a company and rent it out and be them and upset them a little bit, but not too
Because
much.
we have to have a tractor trailer of props
Yeah.
and dumb shit, and you can't your stuff looks like lights and sound. Our stuff looks like chipper shredders and small cages, and then 16 suits that look identical, but we change costumes all the time because the pockets are all rigged with different shit, and
Hey,
the suits do
oh,
magic.
yeah. Yeah, no, and it's great that you're talking about this because um okay, so this week has been really strange for me. Actually, this whole month. There's been this new like social app called Clubhouse, and I'm on this thing, and
Yeah,
I was just like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
great, another app, woohoo, And I'm playing with it, whatever. And again, like I'm not preaching it to the hills, and everyone should get on it, but it was just really interesting. So what ended up happening is I started hosting her, and then a magician showed up, and then 3 magicians showed up, and then basically every fucking magician in the world is like, in my room, and we're all talking about magic. It was a really fun thing because I then got into deeper conversations with a fellow named Giancarlo, and then another guy named Trig, and then this guy and this guy, and were all like, you know pretty top players, I guess, in their
Sure.
field, and that's what they
Oh yeah.
did, because that guy that you meet at a party who just so happens to know one card trick, but he's a fucking investment banker or whatever. But these guys were full time magicians, and they were playing around on the internets, because they're not doing club gigs and all that stuff too. So I started talking to them. I say, oh, you know what? Basically, and maybe we can have this conversation, but I was like, there's some overlap here because I love magic in the way that we employ magic, and you guys also employ this kind of magic in your stage show or something like that. Because to me, a show is a show, so are you going to the show, you know what I mean? So, and then when a DJ gets up on a stage and he's just got a black table, a couple of CD players, and an LED wall, like that's not really a show, and he's not an artisan up there with the mixer playing 2 other people's music. So, and that's fine. I'm not saying that that's not talent. I think that maybe it could be better if there was technology, or that pervade something, a message, or and all that stuff, like the facade of tech engineering, magic, and that show. And so I've developed and worked with kind of not Copperfield dudes, but stage engineers to come up with
Sure.
creative things. And then I would come in and say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we could rotate this cube and then keep the image so it looked like it was staying perfectly still, like a reverse projection map effect, and all that stuff. And those kind of became our moments, at the show, right? It's like going to the Kiss show. You don't go to listen to Gene's Getty Lee, or whatever, it's like, oh my God, I mean, you've heard them on CD and it's amazing, but you should see them live. They're the most proficient players in the world. It's like, the things that people talk about are like, oh yeah. And then, the drummer took a rocket launcher and blew up a piece of the truss and it fell over. And I started to pick up on this like early in my career. So it was like, I would design moments where it was like, a systems crash where the Windows blue screen of death would come up, and then it would just be like making all the error noises, and then the stage would go dark for like a minute, and everyone would be like, not like, how did he do that, but that happened. So I make a point to have little signposts in my shows of these cool little things, expected or unexpected, of course, because that only works so many times where it's like, oh,
Yeah, but
he's doing the
it
thing again.
reminds you have to constantly remind people that they're at a live show, and that's gets more and more important, and it'll be very, very important after lockdown is over. But what was a hard thing for me to learn is that there is one show business, and we all have the identical job. And the more people you meet from different disciplines, the more you realize Bob Dylan and the mall Santa and Picasso and the guy in porn, we all have the same job. We're the guys who do stuff after the chores are done. After there's food and there's shelter and children are taken care of, then you got the goofballs that come out, and whether you call us folk singers or DJs or magicians, it's all the same job. So you've got your blue screen of death bit, you know, and we've got our bit of what's going on, and we're going to pull this back together. It's all the same stuff, and it's wonderful.
Do
And
you have a
it
bit?
reminds you it's alive.
Do you have a bit you loathe?
I think
Or maybe,
no.
let's say, like less.
Yeah. Uh, Boy, there's no way to spin this so it sounds good.
No, I
Um,
mean, I get posed with the same question. I'm just curious what your answer would be, because it was like mine is the big track that I'm like so known for, and it's like, when I'm doing it, if it came down to my show being a request hotline, it would be that, and then it would be like, say the line, Joel, and
there's this great interview with Paul Simon on on Good Morning America, someplace where it's incredibly inappropriate, and they're interviewing Paul Simon, who's the one of the most successful pop musicians of all time, and they ask him about being on tour. This is 10 years ago, and he says, you know, usually about 2/3 of the way through a tour, there'll be a moment when I start doing "You Can Call Me Al," and the whole audience is up dancing, and the band is rocking, and I just say to myself, I gotta fucking stop this now. I can't fucking stand it. And you see the Good Morning America person going, wait a minute, we didn't expect you to tell the truth. What are you doing? Um,
stop.
so I got to get the fuck out of here. And they haven't got a delay on Paul Simon. What's Paul Simon going to say? Well, it turns out Paul Simon's going to say, I got to get the fuck out of here. Um, but for me, Teller and I agree on everything in the show. And so every nuance we go through together. And there's one bit that Teller got in his head was really, really good. And it is a kind of thing that I'm not a big fan of. So Teller kept knocking on it, trying to find something good that I would like,
Right,
because he
right,
already
right.
liked it. And then after a year, we came up with this gloss on the whole thing, a punchline that made it surreal and pulled it out of what it was and made that moment really, really good. And then I said, yeah,
Okay.
that's great. The turn on that's really good. But I still fucking hate everything that leads up to it.
Right, right. I understand. We don't have to say what it is, but
So so I watch it every night, and I say, because I'm off stage for everything with the punchline, and I go, man, the audience loves this. Teller loves this. It's technically beautifully done. It's gorgeous. It's my children's favorite bit in the show. After the show, I'll get complimented on it 4 times, but this belongs in someone else's show. It just doesn't vibe out all the way through just like us. And Teller knows it. Teller's given whole lectures to magic clubs about this trick because they love it, and then starts his lecture by going, by the way, Penn doesn't care for this. But it's a
Speaking
good
of
bit.
which, I might actually find a still frame of Teller and add him in this and call it a Penn and Teller one, and then just loop
Sure,
a still frame
sure.
of him just standing there. Um, because I was thinking, because someone mentioned to me, they're like, "Oh, you should get Penn and Teller on Coffee Run." And I'm like, "You mean Penn?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, the two magicians." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't think that really. I mean, as funny as a Coffee Run with just Teller would be, I just sit here talking into the mic and getting some head nods and
So did you play a musical instrument other than playing the room, playing the world?
really no. And that's the funny thing about
That's great.
music. I that's why I say I'm a producer. Because I introduced or purveyed as a musician or this or that, and whether I am or not. Like again, I'm over it, and it's just like, well, yeah,
Okay.
I said I am. I make music. There you go. I'm a musician. Woohoo! But no, I'm not. I'm not proficient at any thing that requires muscle memory. And except for video games for some reason. I'm really great at those first person shooter battle royale kind of games. But when it comes down to 88 keys or even 12, it's I can figure it out because I know what it is in my head, but I don't have the hand that knows to automatically go to that thing. It's like typing when you're young, you're H, you're looking at the keyboard, but then after a couple weeks, you're no longer looking at the keyboard and you're just whipping away. And piano, I believe, is a lot like that, or any other instrument. It's just developing rudimentaries and muscle memory and stuff like that. And that's just something that just never stuck with me.
But it's so interesting to me because in making music, that was only a mistake of history, right? It was only that we needed to use these machines to make music, and people wanted to play them, needed to play them to make the music. I mean, there's no way that what was in Bach's head was necessary to come out his fingers that way.
Right.
And it's fascinating to think of all the music, all the brilliant musicians that never developed the technique to move that into the physical world that now are. The fact that there's different personalities that are giving us kinds of music that we have. We sometimes do stuff with MIT's Media Lab, and way back in the early 90s, we were developing with them sensor chairs and other ways to try to get people to be able to perform music with the spontaneity of movement like you'd have on an instrument, but without the years of technical practice to get the interface closer between, if you will, the heart and the ear. And you must be aware of this, but in 1982, Brian Eno did a lecture called the Studio as an Instrument. It's called something like that. And I heard that lecture in the early 80s, and it was very clear that that was the end of music that I've been brought up with. I'm 65 now. So the music that I was aware of, the bands that I were in, were still guitar, bass, drums, you know, keyboard. And then in the 80s, very clumsily and uncomfortably, you saw that happen. I mean, the Beatles did it a bit with Sgt. Pepper's and Pink Floyd and that with the studio instruments, with the studio being the instrument. But I was waiting so kind of patiently for music to move into a different form. And it is odd, but also so wonderful that in the past 5 years, I believe the only number one album that could be played was your namesake Bob Dylan, who who actually had an album on the charts that could be played by people in a room, um, without sequences, without a computer, without so on. And you could even argue that the studio sound was still part of that. So when do you come? You come native, right? Absolutely native to the non-traditional instrument way of making music. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, along those lines for sure. Because it's again, it's a tool set. So again, running on the lines of the studio being an instrument, but the studio comprising now of a bit of a mixture, actually. And I think that's what kind of set me apart from my counterparts is that traditionally, and using the term loosely here, in electronic music, in as we know it today, is very much all in the box. They call it ATB for short, or ITB for short, on the music forums and stuff like that. You see this acronym everywhere in the like professional space of music making and engineering. Oh, don't you mix ITB or whatever? And I was like, huh? Oh, in the box, meaning it's all consolidated to software. 100%
Mm-hmm.
software, where it's synthesized kick drums, snare drums, and synths, and all the things that make what I guess would be known as a modern day electronica piece of music. But I kind of, I was so fortunate to be able to grow up and be on that edge, right where electronic music had nothing to do with a computer, and it was still electronic music, but they use these older analog sequencers and stuff like that. And of course, the recording medium wasn't a computer. It was a DA88, which was like a DAT tape or VHS tape or 24 track tape. So I started in that world because one of my things about it's like, oh, I want to make electronic music. Where do I go? Well, of course, I had to go intern at radio stations, checked out record stores and their studios in the back, and of course, everybody had all these different systems and stuff. But I ended up interning at a studio, and the guy had a 64 channel big old Hill console with all the VU meters and stuff like that. He was old school dude, like Mutt Lang kind of stuff, where it was, yeah, we got a drummer in this room, there's 10 mics and he's recording the drums and it occupies this much room on the channel, and then the singer, he's here, and then this mix bus goes out there. So I learned like the signal path and how to with the basics of how to treat that incoming signal, or preamplify a mic, and mic placement on a drum kit to get a good sound that's the modern sound, and all these like recording techniques that again today have no application to the in the box producer and stuff like that. But the in the box producer, like the person who's using just a computer to make music, are using programs and software that emulate that. So I was fortunate enough to be able to grow up through that space. So then computers were capable of recording audio and then synthesizing audio and then moving into that realm. So any new technology that ever came out for a computer, it's like, oh, I know that. That's like, the emulation of doing this. And of course it just got better and better. So I mean, we're talking 96 and up, kind of thing, is when basically PCs kind of started showing up in major studios. With the first, it was, the digital design, like the Pro Tools systems and stuff like that, is where like that was the big thing. Oh, throw away your Ampex, tape head or your EMI and then put in a computer, an expensive computer at first, but it records digital audio, and then that just kind of became a thing. So I was able to follow all the nuances of that technology, and that's what really helped me, is because I was the kid, the whiz. So there were a lot of old studios, or no, traditional studios, we'll call them, dotted throughout Ontario, and I was the kid, who knew the computers. So I could introduce the old bearded Mutt Langs to the advent of, well, guess what? You don't have to buy DA88 tapes until you're blue in the face anymore. Now you can just do it all on this computer, and I'll set it up for you and show you how to use it in exchange, kind of, off the contract, in exchange for me learning what methods you previously used, so that I can tailor this computer solution for you to best emulate what you already know. And that was like the golden age of transcendence between the analog and the digital world. And while obviously now the fight is like the digital world being so good that there's really no distinction or audible difference from the regular consumer or enjoyer of music that says, yeah, I really like music, but I prefer the older recorded stuff versus this new stuff. Even though the medium is different, the methods are the same, because you still have great guitarists, great singers, great drummers, and all that stuff, but they're just being recorded digitally now. And at first you could tell, because it was a really harsh, abrasive sound, whereas tape is analogous, and it's got that warmer kind of tone. But again, as that technology evolved, we were able to emulate the warm kind of really great recording. But it's one of my kind of, I don't know what we call them, like oil sticks of what sounds good digitally versus what sounded good was Dave Brubrecht's Take 5, the recording of it. That, like, to me is still to this day one of the best recordings in terms of the recording arts, not the performing. Well, of course they were pretty good. They were all right, but the sound,
Yeah.
and there's a fun thing too. I'm sure maybe you've been to a concert, like a big rock concert, but you weren't at the concert. You went to sound check when they were just setting up all the big line arrays. There are, like, really still to this day 3 songs that they use to test a system. Tom Sawyer by Rush is, like,
Yes.
number 1. 2 is yeah, okay, it's escaping me, but there's about 3 kind of go-to pieces of recording that they use to calibrate these big systems. Even if it's Britney Spears or deadmau5 or whatever, that you're gonna hear Tom Sawyer and in an arena, when they're loading in and testing out the system for a couple of reasons. One, the dynamics of the track. This is at a time when there was no and we can all look this up later for those who aren't aware, the loudness war, right? So where it's just making this thing as loud as possible, giving no dynamic range to the speaker. So you can't really test a good Meyer rig, on a track like that. You want to listen to this thing that you see the peaks and valleys of the amplitude of the waveform if you were to have it digitally represented. So yeah, and then listening to modern music today, it's really hard to find the art in recording with electronic music and all this pop stuff, and in its own right, it's a whole thing. This is the evolution. This isn't the, well, when I was, I hate that gatekeeping, you know what I mean? Because it's evolution is a thing. But yeah, I that's where I came from, and this is where it ended up. So
Well,
it's
I mentioned I'm very good friends with the Residents and worked with them. And the Residents, as early as the '70s, were were playing around. I don't know how familiar you are with the Residents, but um, they were playing around with emulators and computer and that kind of music very early on, and looking to get rid of the instruments, really. And I did a tour with them in Europe, the Mole Show in the '80s, um, where I was part of their opera, and it was crazy to see. They never developed um, any technical skills on instruments. They were all just computers. And as I said, that whole tour was in the in '81. And what I was waiting for out of popular music, I mean, there was that whole period of time where every snare drum was that Phil Collins gated snare
the Lynn,
that had
yeah.
been recorded once, and everybody used. And then when I got really crazy for this stuff was when I said, "Oh, wait a minute, they're no longer, shooting the Stradivarius violin at the barn door. It hits there, and they draw a target around it. So that's what a violin's supposed to sound like." Because we decided that's what a violin sounds like. And a bass drum is supposed to sound tight and recorded from here. And you started hearing stuff at the bottom supplying the beat that did not have an analog. It did not have it. You did not listen to it and go, "I can picture the drum that's making that sound."
Mm-hmm.
It was just a waveform. And what I love about the little bit, because I'm the wrong age for it and I don't go out But the little bit of electronic dance music I listen to, a little bit of the DJ stuff. What drives me crazy is how long it took for people to start making sounds that uh, weren't mapped onto something that came before.
Right.
You know, now we want a sound. If we want a sound that's kind of high and in tune and piercing, we don't need to make it sound like a violin or a flute.
Right.
We can make it sound like whatever we have, and that kind of
It took a while,
level
didn't
of
it?
freedom, a long time.
Yeah.
That kind of level of freedom is paralyzing to some people because you get stuck thinking in that vocabulary. So we're waiting for the new rush of geniuses that go, we want the mid range to sound like this, and it doesn't have any sort of piano feel or any sort of organ feel or any sort of rhythm guitar feel. It just has emotionally what we want. And where I'm really waiting for that is in food because I'm a vegan
Uh-oh.
and
So your options
so
are
I
pretty
keep
limited
saying,
there. Yeah.
well, no, but I keep saying, why are you always trying to make shit taste like a
Like
hamburger?
meat. Yeah, well, like a
Make it
Beyond Burger.
make it taste like something wonderful that I never heard
Invent a
before.
new vegetable. Yeah.
Make it taste, do some cooking, and make it taste like that bass hit in this song that does not sound like any bass I've heard before. You do not have to make it sound like a Rickenbacker 4002 through a Marshall. Make it sound like a different kind of bass.
Right. Because that's we keep clinging on to emulation, things that were in a very short period of history,
Yeah.
anyway, but so why are we purveying this well into 100 years later? It's like and it's funny you mentioned that because I keep seeing, and I'm always wondering how these businesses are able to succeed. But there are companies like just throwing it out there, like East West makes the complete Stradivarius fucking sample library of the Stradivarius, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a like $1,000 product that sounds like an instrument that's been around for hundreds of years. Okay, I mean, I see how that could make sense to someone who's doing a film score and they need to prototype something and this and that, because it's being played by real instruments in a controlled setting, and there's a market for that. But no, I hear you. The food one is interesting though, because again, it's almost the same thing. It's a Beyond Burger. It tastes like meat. It looks like meat.
Yeah,
It smells
we're
like
gonna
meat, but
grow.
it's not
We're
meat.
gonna we're gonna grow clean meat. We're gonna grow cells in a laboratory
I'll tell
that
you
are
what's going to happen.
environmentally sound.
I'll tell you
I
what's going
want
to
to grow
happen. They're going to
cells that we've
become.
never.
We're going to do this. We're going to engineer the perfect hamburger, and then all of a sudden it's going to speak. And then we're going to go right back to the board of the ethics committees and talking about our little, invented cow creatures, like our tabletop cows that are, and then it's just going to go full circle on the ethics of food and how we consume it.
But I wanted to ask you, because I've asked several DJs this, but not at your level. And it is, forgive me, I know it is the most cliche question,
Oh, go for it.
but I've never gotten an answer to this.
Well, the more cliche it is, the better chances I have a really smart ass, funny answer for it. So this could be entertaining. Let's have it.
Okay. Comics always talk about playing the room, that the audience tells them where to go, where the jokes are going to go, and what they're going to do. And they are always lying. There are minor tweaks and there are feels, but the person on stage is predominantly leading, and the audience goes there to be taken through the experience that the artist wants to take them through.
Right. Yes.
And you don't want input from the audience.
Correct.
Picasso does not sell his painting and then say, what do you want to add to this? Want to put some more yellow in here? But the audience is still part of it. So when I'm doing a show my volume, my tone, my speed, um, my stance, my aggression all change moment by moment, night by night. But my text and my choreography and my direction don't change very much.
Right.
Uh, I am very, very tight ass. I touch my nose at the same time. My hand goes in my pocket at the same time. Now, the few, and I forgive me, I know I'm coming from a place of ignorance, but remember, I'm 65 years old. The five, six, seven um, DJ shows I've been to, big ones,
Mm-hmm.
um, high quality people. I stand there, and once again, I'm an observer because you can't be part of the culture without being part of the culture. You've got to live in it. You know, no one in 1968 could go see one Hendrix show and say anything interesting. You had to be part of the culture. Um, and I'm wondering how much actual um, actual writing of the pots and actual choices of materials are being made by the person in charge. Now, the bullshit way to do this was if we were still doing bullshit, I wanted to get a DJ working live and a DJ playing a recording and put them
And
both in a big room with
oh,
everybody
bring it
and
back.
say, can we tell the difference? We're
Yes.
just going to say this is deadmau5 on his best night.
Yeah, and
And
here
this
he
is
is on his
another
worst
guy,
night. Yeah.
and this another guy with a head, and he has hit precisely one button for the whole night,
Yeah.
and everything else is fake. What are we feeling? What are we seeing? And everybody I've talked to who's a fan say they're waiting for the beat to drop,
Mm-hmm.
they're waiting for it to hit. Would you please? I realize it's an incredibly stupid question.
It
Would
isn't.
you please make it a smart question and answer it?
Okay, it's a three-part answer. One being a case study that you've provided. I've once actually very recently saw a video of the nail gun routine. I don't know if you've come across this little piece of magic on the internet,
No.
but they recorded or found an airing of the nail gun routine, and they had
Uh,
played. You haven't seen this? Oh,
no.
I can imagine. But okay, so they did the nail gun thing, and then they side by sided it with you doing the nail gun thing. And I shit you not, there was no video manipulation or editing, but holy fuck, Penn, it was like you're watching the same thing on a virtual set. Every
Well, that's
syllable,
great. That's great.
it was the most impressive thing. And so then that impressed me on two levels. One, the trick, brilliant trick, one of my favorites. It's fucking awesome, and especially with the oh oh that, like, I was like, oh my god, they, and even though that there's just no way you're about to punch a nail through your head, it's still, even for me as a analytical mind, made me go, oh wow, like, oh, for a minute, and that was really amazing and masterfully done. But the even more impressive thing was watching the same act on the split screen, playing start to finish, footsteps, breath, touching your face, and all this shit. I'm like, fuck, man. He, like, the thing I took away from that is this guy has practiced this in front of a mirror, in his bedroom, in the shower, eating dinner, in his mind, in his sleep, because that's the only way I can think of being that on beat for that long. Even if it's only 10 minutes, it's like I couldn't do the same thing twice in a row with a distance of 2 minutes, like that. And that just blew me away. Okay, so, and that really kind of told me something, like, oh, because when you see it for the first time, you're like, oh, the improv, the this, the that, and all this, like, kind of freewheel shit. Like, let's take that into effect before I answer the DJ question. So you see where I'm going with that?
I do.
Okay, so And the second part of the answer is there's a famous fight between me and two managers. Basically, when I started out, I had two managers really, and they were part of a kind of management company, and one handled this side of the business, the other one handled this side of it, but they were a team, and they're great guys, and it wasn't like an epic rift or split up or anything like that, but it just came time to segment the business where my manager wanted to go here and his partner wanted to go there, and they had to basically it was a divorce, and I had to pick which parent I went to. And of course, I had to sit through the who do you want to go with, Joel? We're not going to tell you because this is a choice you have to make. So we're going to give you a day with A and a day with B, and they're going to give you their stuff. And you can make a decision as an artist, like what side of the business you want to go on. And I was like, okay, this is awkward, but sure, and then it became not a fight, but a fight. And one of the arguments from A was, Joel, you really need to read the crowd. You got to adapt. You have to, do this thing and then kind of, play off the energy of this, and it's a call and response kind of deal, if you really want to make it as a DJ and all this shit. And then argument B was play the fucking hits and get the fuck off the stage. And I went with B because I knew in my heart of hearts, and you're right, I've been subjected to this too, where it's hey, have you ever just done that this and that, and how do you change your shit? And quite literally, and I'm actually somewhat notorious for saying all we do is hit the button, and it's predetermined, it's preordained for the rest of the night. But that's a two-part answer, because there actually is that kind of playing off the crowd thing, but that's DJing. So hey, play this, play that, play this, play that. You can't preordain that. Where the little wobbly stiletto girl like hobbles up into the booth and it's my boyfriend's birthday, he really loves. Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna work that in as a DJ, because DJ to me in my mind is exactly that, disc jockey. So they've got a big crate of records or a library of music that they go in. Yeah, you know what? It's a whole bunch of. It's a Wrinkle Ranch tonight, so we're gonna play 90s hip hop, and stuff like that. He just kind of goes with that kind of thing to suit the surface level, kind of intake of what the crowd is and what they like. So yeah, that's a thing. But when you start being a purveyor of your own music and performer, and you're known and doing this thing, it becomes less of picking records out of a hat, so to speak, and throwing them down. Like myself, I only perform my own music, so I can set the tone myself. Like I can sit at home and say, okay, I'm going to open with this track. I'm going to do this, and especially when you bring in like mechanics and sequence things like lighting cues and video cues and all these kind of signposted things, you can't freestyle that. It's just technically impossible. The MA, the lighting console guy, is not a virtuoso. He's running a SMPTE stripe throughout the whole show. So you can't go off script, because then all of a sudden the content on the wall is for what would have been, but you've now just decided to play Living on a Prayer. So yeah, no, you're right. It is bullshit
Hold on a second.
Oh yeah, no problem.
I'm doing an interview now with deadmau5. I don't know. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. My wife broke in. Are we back here?
Oh, tell her I said hi, by the way.
Oh, I will. Yes,
yeah,
I am.
She's great.
Yes, she is.
I met her on the Clubhouse thing.
Yes, you did.
But yeah, as you go up the rungs of the alphabet of listings of DJs, once you get into the B's and the A's and the triple A's and all that stuff, then it's fucked up. Then it's just like, why am I even here? Anybody could come up here and possess enough talent to hit play on a playback system.
But there's also a strong sense that we need as animals of being in the room with someone who has created something beautiful.
And that's the value of the ticket. I have no reservations or disgust towards, oh, what is my purpose if I'm on a stage? That only applies to the performance part. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love being there and seeing and, being a part of that, social activity where
And it,
the thing
and it
is
also it also informs your next show. It also informs your next piece of music. It also informs everything that you're there and in the room and real and in that position from that vantage point that you will be in again.
yes. So
And
that's my focus then shifts towards how do we present it with technology and effects and lighting and all this stuff, how do we doll it up so it's worth talking about? Because the thing, and I've been getting this question a lot is, oh, during COVID, are you doing these virtual shows? And I'm like, well, I don't even like that word because there's nothing show about it because the ticket isn't. I only occupy an hour and a half of your time at a ticketed event. The real memories are made from getting in your Ford fucking Yaris, running out of gas on the way there, and standing in line and having a conversation with so and so, and literally being in the venue for hours, having drinks, getting lost. Meeting like-minded people and stuff like that. That's the show. That's the ticket. It's the entire sphere of from 4 p.m. to 3 a.m. But my time really only occupied 9 to 11. So that you can't virtualize that.
right. And you can't even all the stuff you're saying is all true, but also standing that close to that many people is an event in itself.
Right.
Whether you're there to see deadmau5 or the Pope or Penn and Teller, that feeling of people are this close to me and people are sharing something, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Right. 100%. That's what event is,
But it's fascinating to me that your nail gun example is the perfect answer. We are trying not to let the audience write our act.
right.
We are trying to bring them through an event that we orchestrated. So if Teller and I could push a button, we would. It just happens that what we're working in requires that we go through these analog activities to make them mean something.
Right.
And I just that was exactly the answer I wanted. Thank you.
There you go. That's what it is.
And
It's the nail gun act.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Cool.
And so when do you think there'll be real deadmau5 shows again?
The burning question. We just saw
Sure.
we saw some dates get pushed back. I mean, it's ultimately, I think nobody really knows right now, and that's
Nobody knows.
okay. So we'll just ride it out, and if this is life, we'll adapt and life will go on. So, it's not woe is me. I'll never live again. And, things will change for everyone. I think, whether, if the Moderna Pfizer fucking thing pans out, great. Awesome. But I mean, I'm not holding my breath and not saying like I'm dubious about, a vaccine working and all this stuff, but some dark thoughts come to mind, some great thoughts come to mind. One great thought's like, hey, it'll go away, or it'll subside to the point of mitigation and stuff like that. Because SARS actually was a thing in Toronto for like a hot second.
Yeah, yeah.
You remember that, right? And I mean, it lasted a couple hot weeks, and we got a free Rolling Stones AC/DC concert out of the deal, so that wasn't too bad. yeah, it was great. Like let's have pandemics every year, or not pandemics. It was just an outbreak of that. But now, it's 2.0 of that, and it's a hit globally due to the globalization of the planet and at the rate of which we travel and spread these things. But so the dark thought would be, this is it. This is the one. This is the 100-year burnout of humanity. Because I mean, who's to say this didn't happen with the dinosaurs? I mean, we had comets and stuff like that too. But there are theories spinning around that they got a bug, and just that was it. But of course, they didn't have the advent of modern medicine and what do we call sentience? So there's that. Yeah. I have a lot of mixed thoughts, but honestly, I'm staying in my lane. I'm not being a Google doctor and just waiting for orders from responsible people. Key,
Yeah.
do all the research you can, and you learn what's bullshit and what's fucking not, and what's hype and what's not. Because, like I said, I mean, there's no Illuminati, there's no secret society of this all omnipresent knowledge. We're all fucking idiots, basically, in all of this with everything. So once you've kind of come to grips with that and you realize that there's just literally no control, then you're kind of at peace with that, and you just do your part, obviously, of course, because if everybody adopted the quarantine measures or stay-at-home orders, maybe this could have been a little bit better. But it just got so fucking political, and that's a shame. But that's the world we live in, and
Yep, that's the world.
that's it. My favorite quote from an artist who shall remain nameless is, "The world's fucked up." And I'm like, okay, all right. So let's just do our part, be kind to others, and help people in need, and just keep that altruistic view. And then, then it'll magically go away, or fizzle out over a 5-year course, or again, maybe events will spin up in July. Who knows? But
who knows is right.
We're preparing. We're optimistic. We have the funds and fortitude to basically get through this. And when it's safe to do so, I'm going to get my mousy ass back out there and resume the program. That's all you can do.
Me too.
Right?
Me too. That's the plan.
Yeah. Now we just have to get 63 million other people to adopt that train of thought, and we're good. Well, hey, listen, I won't keep your time, but it's been a pleasure and a privilege to finally be able to meet.
Just wonderful to talk.
Yeah.
And we will try very hard to get you on Fool Us. That'll be fun.
Oh, hey, I'm easy, and I'm more than cooperative. So you know how to get a hold of me, and we'll do that. We'll make that happen, because as soon as the world opens up, I'm heading to Vegas.
Thanks so much, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Ben.
Stay negative.
Stay staying. All right, take care.
See you, man.